There are two kinds of human activity to which we endow with unwarranted optimism. We think we're good at both of them. We enjoy doing them, and invariably the results are not what we expect. The first activity is thinking, the other one you can guess for yourselves, it is not eating. Thinking is what we do when extrapolating from what we know to something that might happen, and boy, is the process complex. When I discuss with you how thinking develops, I will be talking about the evolution of thoughts as a natural selection. I want to introduce this concept now because I feel that not only thinking, but behavior and emotions are also evolving and have a form of natural selection. I'm not going to go into it more deeply just now. I want to introduce the concept so it will not be completely foreign to you when we do delve into it more deeply. Before reading the next couple of paragraphs, I want you to remember the theme of this book. I use the concept extensively in the section on therapy. What is it? It's the difference between understanding and knowing. This is so important in today's Google's world. Yes, we have a load of information, but time for another joke. After a long technical description relevant to a court case, turning to the advocate, the judge sniffed and proclaimed himself to be none the wiser. Ah yes, my lud, you most certainly are not. But you are better informed. You can only know something after you understand, and wisdom comes after application and synthesis into our experience. My lud could not. I would not have asked David to take an exam to see what he understood and took from this book. At the end of most chapters, I would be most surprised if you are able to give a coherent description of what you've read. This does not mean you are wasting your time. That is not the point. I want to show something, illuminate it to you to understand it. If you want to remember it, read it again. That's not my point either. The point is, if you want to develop from an understanding, if you want to embellish on understanding and acquire the subject as knowledge, you must learn the subject. This means reading, rereading and committing to memory. Now, we will suffice with you understanding. I do not intend to start a new divinity or a new school of thought. As you will see later, I object to them. I think we should all go naked into the world and develop what we acquire and use it as we can and want to, not have someone else's rote rammed down our throats. So, read through the paragraph, read it slowly if you want, but you will see a theme, a pattern of thoughts. It may be something different or maybe something you have thought of. Incorporate what you grasp, as you grasp, into your own experiences. Thanks to my brilliant editor, you will be seeing something that is coherent, and you can understand. You're reading it for fun and nothing more, unless you are the beta reader. I am paying you to do more than have fun. Let us make one important distinction between thinking and emotion. Thinking is generally linear and organized in space and time. Think about that slowly. We think sequentially. We organize our thoughts as the first comes before the second and before the third and so on. We tend to think in containers. Our thinking is almost mathematical. It has functions where one word can describe a whole set of actions and even consequences. Thinking is binary. Let's go into that a little deeper. Mankind is basically incompetent of thinking in a singularity, no matter what that may be. We Jews claim God is the only true singularity. Don't worry, I am not trying to convert anyone. We all, even Jews, always think in terms of either this or that. We cannot think in terms of infinity or nothingness. There is always something else defining something about the thought. Stephen Hawking tried to derail the idea of an ultimate finite point, our beginning, by describing a warped continuum of time. Did he succeed, or was he grappling with an inherent defect in our thought process? Thoughts. Thoughts have boundaries to them. Every boundary has another boundary and so on. In that respect, we are very much like computers. To digress, do not be too alarmed that we are using computer science nomenclature. We have been explaining ourselves in accordance with the fashionable scientific notion of that time. If I am describing ourselves in terms of computers and modern physics, Freud described us in terms of hydrodynamics. In other words, he thought of our emotions and our behavior in terms of pressures and vectors. He described the id, ego and superego as if they were fluids under pressure. Bion, who is very much my hero, saw things in a pure mathematical way. He described the quality of thoughts in different levels of mathematics. Bion described the lattice of organization of thinking and understanding. The cognitive lattice is a description of the connections between two thinking people. They both can choose at differing levels of organization. Beyond described the organization of thoughts at its lowest level as two forms of subconscious. Let me explain that. The first form of subconscious is very much the forefather of my concept of the thought-emotion forebearer. We will discuss this important idea fully. If you remember, I stated that thoughts and emotions were very much like wave and particle theories describing the same thing in different ways. This concept is an extension of Bion's beta thought. To get back to Bion, his second subconscious was the equivalent of what we all call subconscious thought. Subconscious thought is something that we are not aware of unless we are actively engaged in something to drill down into our subconscious mantle and to let its contents escape into our conscience. Again, the subconscious though is stored in dream format as chaotic. If you are getting an insight, I claim that memory is in your non-aware part of your conscious. Remember, a thought is organized in logic, time and space. The level of lack of awareness, unashamedly, is a concept I stole from the bedrocks of CBT. I use it in the idea of automatic thinking. From there, I took it to automatic everything. Automatic thinking is hidden in our non-aware conscious. It is the second channel in our thought process, the one we are not aware of until it makes itself felt. It is a sentinel, both hooked into hidden feelings and contains a compendium which is our memory banks. Think of it as a radar system and storehouse with a special place for beliefs and daydreams. Don't worry, we will repeat this and enlarge on it. You will begin to see how we are living on a brief interface between the past and the present. We scan the horizons, avoid the pitfalls and proceed into a hopefully planned, better future. The question is, how do we do this and what can go wrong? Doer, the doing and the done. Now, I want to take you to the pure genius that was Bion. He said, correctly, that we can think in terms of abstraction of our thoughts. We see reality as it is, think of simple sums. We can think in terms of functions, which is virtually algebra. Verbs are very much like mathematical functions. They imply at least three aspects: the doer, the doing and the done. We can think in terms of abstraction of algebra, which is geometry, and we can abstract our abstractions, which is calculus. Don't be horrified by this. We are talking about how complex we can think and how we can describe in mathematical terms the beauty of poetry. Let us go back to Bion's lattice. We have a thought and understanding. Someone thinks, and someone understands. It may be the same person. This concept becomes relevant when we discuss evolution of thinking. The very act of thinking not only produces a thought but alters the thinking process. I am sorry if this seems complicated, but I will refer to this later in development. We have a thought and we have the thinker. They interact. Let's take this book. I am transcribing my thoughts. If I were talking to David, I would watch to see the glow of realization. You are thinking and absorbing my thoughts. We both can do this at differing levels, just as we can broadcast and receive our thoughts at different levels of sophistication. Something happens to your brain. Don't be alarmed, we will talk about this again in the section on development. Similarly, all the levels of thinking can and will generate different levels of emotion and link into different forms of feelings. Let me explain. Feelings are the result of emotions coming up from the subconscious and meeting with a thought that labels it. Feelings are what we have stored in our automatic everything. In other words, there is a warehouse in shorthand containing all of our experiences. This item is made available to the automatic thinking. We will come back to this, but first, Bion. Wow, you must be thinking this is really complicated. And so, it is. We communicate between ourselves and within ourselves, as Bion said, on a very intricate level. Add to that, we are talking about three different levels of communication: our subconscious, our non-aware conscious and our aware conscious. That which is within us and hidden because we have stored it, that which is within us but is in the background, and that which is within us and we are aware of it. Remember the ongoing dominant process as we hurtle through space and time, as we are shifting all the time from what we know, what we knew and what we think we will know. How do we do that? We are trying to take the out of uncertainty, making it certain. Then, we can stop thinking and go fishing. You'll see why in another 2 paragraphs from here. But, I have to muddy the waters first, sorry. Consider it as tough love. We are dealing in probabilities and consequences. How likely is something to happen and how dangerous is it? We are all risk managers. We make two kinds of choices, avoiding the dangers and seeking pleasure. More about those choices later. For now, let's say we are in the first mode, avoiding danger. We deal with a series of dangers by eliminating the greatest. Our experience tells us about two crucial factors: how bad things are if it happens and how likely is it to happen. The style of judging is defined by our experience and our innate personality. The sociopath has learned this style from experience, and the psychopath is born with it. Again, we will discuss both later. We cannot know with certainty how likely something can happen. Let me give you an example. Tomorrow the forecasters say there is an 80% chance of lightning. That is only worth knowing if we know and can rely on the accuracy of prediction. You will pay no attention if you know the forecasters are invariably wrong. If you decide to go swimming tomorrow, you want reliable predictions. Similarly, obsessive personalities demand as close an approximation to 100% certain. All the time, we are learning how to increase our ability to predict. How can we reliably amass enough meaningful information to be certain? We will build on this concept when we talk about development. We invest our present in trying to find ways to increase the probability, or at least to be aware what the probability is. If we are in danger, we function well if we know what our chances are. Good or bad, we want to know. If we are forewarned, we may be forearmed. We try to remove chance. This becomes very relevant when we discuss preventing PTSD. Why do we think at all? We think to solve problems and prevent further problems. Many of us do not have problems, we have answers. Then, we wander around looking for the right problem to apply our solution to. Far too often, we tend to think in terms of solutions. The best solution starts by asking, what is the problem? I wish I had $1 for every time a patient tells me, prescribe for me. Politics are generally a division between two warring camps, those who have a solution but cannot define the problem, and those who see the problem but cannot and will not see the solution. Israeli politics is divided between those who have a solution, the two-state solution they seek, so far unsuccessfully to shoehorn the solution. The other half of our population who define the problem, the Arabs, will never accept us, and thus do not need a solution. Healthy, efficient thinking. Healthy, efficient thinking consists of 5 stages. What is the problem? What would I like? What do I need, and what is stopping me from achieving what I like and what I need? Finally, we have to decide what is better, what we like or what we need. This will return when we talk about therapy. My mother always said, a friend is someone who tells you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. To solve a problem, we have to be brutally honest. Whilst we are problem solving, we are in fact trying to arrive at the perfect situation. That situation is where we no longer think. We enjoy. I want you to read that sentence again. We enjoy. I want to share something with you. Not too long ago, I was driving down the glorious Trans-Israel Highway and enjoying the scene. For those of you who have not visited Israel, let me tell you that you should. It is the most beautiful country you can imagine, so varied and so integrated into its past and its present. Anyway, as I was driving down the highway, I had the strangest feeling. I didn't recognize it first, and then I said to myself, aha, this is what others feel, they call it happiness. I remembered back to my lessons in gynecology when we spoke about the female reproductive system. The lecturer said many women never achieved orgasm in their lives. He said it was accepted practice to ask if a woman had achieved orgasm. If a woman answered, I am not sure, you could be pretty sure she hadn't. The vast majority of us do not know what happiness is. It is an entity in its own right, a feeling of well-being which most of us will never achieve. One of the main tenets in this book is that for most people, the avoidance of negative feelings is a positive feeling, and life's goal. It isn't. If you have never achieved happiness, you will always be thinking. If you have achieved happiness, you will not be able to stop thinking. I will return to this at the end of the chapter. I'll give you a spoiler, you can't do happy, you can only be happy. As I reread the book, I feel a deep sense of regret. David, like me, fell hopelessly in love with Israel. Newly married, David had discovered happiness, and he went to Israel. If this book says anything, it would be to recognize happiness, seek it and treasure it. What is stopping us from being able to enjoy happiness and not to be thinking? It is our old friend, the bearer of the name of this chapter, automatic thinking. Automatic thinking is scanning and informing us all the time of what to be aware of and looking for what can happen and what may happen. Automatic thinking affects the way we tune our thoughts to how we appreciate what is going on around us. We have a full repertoire in our automatic thoughts toolbox. We are scanning the surroundings, and we are guessing what people are going to say. We are trying to interpret what they have said, we are trying to diagnose why they did something, and we are trying to prognose what they are going to do. Then we apply it to what it means to us and what we need and what we think we need, and what we want and what we think we want. Every time automatic thinking is at play, we often have a level of anxiety or a negative emotion. We may not feel it, as we are on automatic feelings too. The negative emotions, as we will see later, may and very often are automatic and hidden. The thought and feeling interact and eventually, if strong enough, will drag our awareness onto this tussle and interaction. But automatic thoughts are more than this. There is another part dealing with the future. It is not enough to draw from the past. We are always preparing contingency plans. Sometimes we are aware of these plans, we call them daydreams. We will deal with this fully in the following chapters. There are other parts of automatic thinking that we will discuss in development. We have definite thoughts about what we believe. These hidden and certainly unquestioned thoughts develop as we interact and belong to our group, be it family, religion, nation and so on. There are things we categorize, assume and act upon. Examples of this are our attitudes to a whole host of subjects. As we develop, we find a use for buds bearing the forbidden fruits. They are part of the automatic thinking, daydreams or fantasies. We are often not aware of them, and if they slip into awareness they are not acted upon. Much more on this in pathology. Later, in the section about therapy, I will discuss in full what kind of automatic thinking we are doing, and in the development section, I will discuss how it came about. I will deal with beliefs more in the chapter on automatic behavior. I know that beliefs are what we think, but they are exhibited in our behavior. When a person believes, he does. Hypnosis. You will probably guess that hypnosis is a way of breaking down the boundaries between the conscious and the subconscious, and you would be horrifyingly wrong. Hypnosis should be a weakening of the barrier between aware and non-aware. Hypnosis enables you to enter the depository of experience stored in the non-aware conscious. Hypnosis retrieves meaningful information. As you recall, the feeling has attributes of cognitive material and obeys many of its properties in dealing with time and space. If, by mistake, you drill down into the cauldron containing emotion, we see a psychosis. This is why hypnosis in the wrong hands can cause irreparable damage. Let's summarize. You, the captain of Starship Enterprise, are in charge. In front of you, the Starry Way. Something flashes across the view whilst you are gazing at rings of a distant planet. All being well, tonight you will store this in your experiences. I remember another joke. The masochistic version of Captain Kirk confused everyone when commanding, "Beat me up, Scotty." The reason this is a joke is that the eventuality of this happening would have been censored by Kirk's reality testing. Even for the real Captain Kirk, things go wrong. A distant flash has been noted by the scanners feeding into the computer behind it. A quick match with stored memories in a different, faster information base realizes that this is similar to a situation when a disaster followed. The event is flagged code red and Captain Kirk focuses on the new threat. Meanwhile, in the code red mode all resources are turned on. I started off saying that thinking is quite a hazardous and non-profitable activity. I can imagine arched eyebrows. I wasn't being facetious. Happiness is generally when we are not thinking. Thinking is usually doing, and you do not do happiness. Happiness is about being. We discuss the many different levels of organizational thought, from the simplest basic elements to the most sophisticated. We describe the different places thoughts might exist in the subconscious and the conscious, which is divided into aware and non-unaware. Finally, let us remember that thinking is an interaction between two objects, both working from the simplest to the most complex. As Beyond pointed out, There is a vast matrix of complexities between the transmitter and the receiver. To make things even more complicated, you can be both the transmitter and receiver. We mentioned automatic thinking and uncertainty. We think most of the time. To avoid unpleasantness and stop thinking is when we achieve happiness. The last word is this. This chapter is meant to illuminate, cast a beam of light in a previously darkened room. You are not meant to remember, you are meant to glimpse. You will understand that more fully when we come to the part about development, therapy, learning and change. But, now we are going to delve even farther into the world of automatic everything. Automatic everything is more